We're talking Matt Eberflus on today's Cowboys Report. The reality is the Cowboys defense is simply among the worst in the entire National Football League right now. Many of you asking, calling, hoping for the Cowboys to fire Matt Eberflus. I'll look at the reasons why, reasons not why, the replacements, the likelihood, all of that on today's show. But first, I want to hear from you guys. Do you think the Cowboys should fire Matt Eberflus? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comment section of today's video. Y for yes, N for no. A positive to begin. The run defense is better. 17th in yards per game with quarterback scramble, especially that week one game, kind of boosting these figures a little bit here. They're 9th in yards per carry at 3.7. That's awesome. EPA is a little high, and the third down scramble is really factoring into that there. Stuff rate is now top 10. I think guys, they went from like bottom 3 in like all these metrics to their top 10 in some of them. The success rate is still not as high as I'd like. Again, the Eagles week one matchup having a big factor there. 7th in yards before contact. They've done a good job against the run. But at what cost? The pass defense is among the NFL's worst. They're 31st in yards per game. They're allowing 9 yards per pass attempt. Holy cow. They're 31st in EPA per play. They're 27th in success rate. By the way, all these numbers before Monday Night Football, there are some bad Lions numbers in there. They might jump to a spot lower on a couple of these, by the way. Time to pressure is 25th, 2.8 seconds. The sack rate is 27th. You can't win like that. Total defense-wise, they're 30th in yards per game. They're 31st in yards per play, 31st in EPA per play, 28th in success rate, 28th in points per game, 32nd in third downs. They have the worst third down defense. If that number holds, it probably won't. My data set went back to 2003, be the worst third down defense since then, at least since then. It probably gets a bit better. It should get a little bit better, but getting better and being fixed are two very different things. So what is the percent chance the Cowboys fire Matt Eberflus? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. What is the percent chance you think the Dallas Cowboys actually fire Matt Eberflus in season? End of season is a different conversation here. But let me know in the comments section of today's show. Mid-season, I'm not going to get my hopes up here. I don't think the Cowboys are going to fire him, at least not yet. And I think there are a couple different understandable, maybe not right, but understandable reasons. The biggest of which is this: it's only been 3 games. Like, there is always a natural adjustment period to getting acclimated. I have issues with how Eberflus has deployed his personnel. I've got big issues on that front, but there is time still to adjust things and fix things. And look, the players deserve blame. The players have not done a good enough job. I can't blame Matt Eberflus necessarily when the Bears run a flea flicker and the entire secondary bites on it. Like, is that Eberflus's fault? Did they not coach it well enough? Maybe. But I don't think the execution has been very good either. Like, it's Eberflus's fault that Trayvon Diggs goes for a jam and falls down? No. It is Eberflus's fault that they're playing 7 yards off coverage on 3rd and 2. I don't understand that at all, but yes, that's one of it. The biggest reason why no in season, who the hell is going to call your plays? There are no, and we'll go into this more in depth in a little bit, there are no good options on this staff. They simply don't exist. It's MIA. There's not a clear-cut play caller that like makes sense to bring in as the DC. That's a huge issue. And look, to be clear, none of this is to excuse what Eberflus has done so far. It hasn't been good enough. You have to make major changes. We'll do a whole video on that, what I would do to try to change things up there. Firing the DC is kind of your final, everything's lost, we got to change something. If you lose the locker room, that's when you got to start doing stuff like that. I don't think that's the case through 3 games, but it does have to get better. It's also not a very Cowboys move. I mean, they let Mike Nolan coach out the entire season, although it may have been some pettiness with James that reporting that they were going to fire him. But it's not a very Cowboys move. With that said, Eberflus has to get better. Otherwise, you're going to be doing a defensive coordinator search again in the offseason. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. It's simple to play. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. You get those picks right, you could cash in. It is the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 plus states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. A Cowboys free Week 4 Prize Pick slate. Aaron Rodgers more than passing yards against the Vikings. I think you can get a couple chunk plays in there. TJ Hawkinson, maybe a little bit slow at times, but I think he'll have some success against kind of a shaky Steelers defense more than there. And then take your max discount. Jalen Hurts, I know, but it's a half passing yard. Even he can get there. It's a no-brainer. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. It's Prize Picks. It's good to be right. I think this defensive schematic setup is pretty bad from the Cowboys. All zone defense is terrible. It's not working. Then again, the man coverage is bad too. Like the stat I think for my belt was Caleb Williams was 4-4, 86 yards and 2 scores. There's a couple different reasons why Eberflus is trying to do so much zone, but you have this like cascading impact of your secondary can't cover very long. The pass rush isn't getting home fast enough, so the secondary has to cover longer, and it just kind of continuously snowballs there. There is no pressure from this Cowboys team. They actually had some success early against the Bears with some 5-man pressure packages, and then went away from it. The pressures they do get aren't quality. And they're coming late in the down. They're coming after they've already asked someone to cover. The average pressure is almost 3 seconds. That's really bad. I think that is especially true at defensive end, where after a lot of pressures, because Hurts held the ball so long in week 1 against a good zone coverage in the second half, who's showing up and getting after the passer right now? Hasn't been Dante Fowler. Nealon's been a good run defender up front, but he's not getting home since week 1. Ezraku gets you 1 good pressure per week, but that's it. He's also a second-round pick. Got to be patient. Sam Williams, I've been really underwhelmed by. Hopefully they play Clowney this week. I actually think your top 3 defensive tackles, namely Osa Odigizua, especially Kenny Clark, and Solomon Thomas against the run, have actually done a pretty good job. Mozzie's been a guy, Jay Toy's been a guy, but your DTs have been fine, but you're not getting pressures. And I need more from Osa, by the way. He has not been impactful enough yet. Also, you're putting the entire defense in a bad spot because the guy that everybody feared isn't there anymore. And in part, not solely, in part, this entire defensive unit is a mess right now. Nobody who is playing well among the units. I think the DTs are playing relatively well, but that's it. Your linebackers aren't playing well. Kenneth Murray, Jack Sanborn, Damone Clark all take turns looking completely lost in games. Completely lost. Leafau is hardly playing. Shamar James can't get on the field. Overshown's not healthy yet. Your secondary, Deron Bland's hurt. He played really well in week 1. Diggs has not had, really he's had like 5 bad quarters in a row, and then the Bears just like picked on everybody else after him. Kyer Elam doesn't look very good. Reddy Stewart's actually been serviceable as a nickel corner, but the safety play overrides everything else because Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson, again, since week 1, have been terrible. Been horrible the past 2 weeks. They put Wanye Thomas in the game some. I hope that continues. I know Donovan Wilson is a captain. I don't care. I got to have some accountability. And right now, there ain't no accountability on this defense. Who do you blame more right now for this Dallas Cowboys defense? C for the coaches, P for the players. Let me know in the comments section of today's show, who do you blame more for the Cowboys defense, C or P? I want to be clear, it is not just Matt Eberflus, because the players deserve plenty of blame for their mistakes as well. But it's everything that's bad right now, outside of kind of the run defense, which at a certain point, if the Cowboys keep saying so bad against the pass, they're eventually going to have bad games against the run too, because that's how football works. You can go watch what the Browns defense did last year, who looks great now. This Cowboys team needs big changes, not just schematically, but personnel-wise. Stephen Jones said it's not a personnel issue, it's an execution issue all he wants. Well, your personnel are the one who executes. So maybe it is actually a personnel issue. But you can't just do the same thing over and over again. Eberflus wants to be a bend but don't break defense. Okay, that is useless and actually a massive negative for you when you're also getting gashed left and right for huge explosive plays. You can't be both. You can give up explosives if you create explosives. You can be bend but don't break if you don't break. They're not doing any of that right now. And if that does not change, they're in trouble. Not that they're already not in trouble, but whatever. We'll talk replacements here in a second. But all the Cowboys coverage you need is right here. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/CowboysTV. Let's talk Matt Eberflus replacements. And this is the issue. If the Cowboys fired Matt Eberflus in season, I don't know who the hell calls the plays for the Dallas Cowboys on defense. There are no viable options right now. Andre Curtis is your passing game coordinator. He's the highest ranking second or defensive assistant under Matt Eberflus. He is an Eberflus guy. He hasn't called plays. And also, your secondary is playing really bad right now. So, why would you promote the guy whose unit is also being really bad? Dave Borgonzi is the linebackers coach. Well, they're not playing very well. So is he gonna call the plays? Aaron Whitecotton, I think, has done some good stuff along the defensive line. I like, for the most part, what I've seen from them in general, but he's only been a defensive line coach over the course of his NFL career. David Overstreet II, I saw you guys in live chat saying fire him. J.J. Clark has called plays, actually. At UTEP, he's a defensive assistant. That's not really an option. There is no obvious, even maybe viable, internal option. You're almost better off trying to get Eberflus to change stuff and make it better. And it's mid-September. You're not going to make an outside hire and try to totally change the defense with everything. That's not going to happen. I'm sure Rex Ryan will ask to be the DC because he wants back in football, but no one wants to hire him. But that's not a good idea at all. So you're kind of stuck with Eberflus for now. You might reach critical mass where you go, the locker room's lost him, they don't care, they don't trust him, and you have no choice but to fire him. But until you reach that point, you're kind of going to let that one ride a little bit.